All right. Today, I'm going to present making green cities, suburbs, and metro regions. This. So, first of all, it's
You want someone to scroll for you?
nope. First of all, it's the table of contents. I will mainly take care of the 19.1 and 19.2, and the following speaker will take the rest of the chapter. So, first of all is the introduction, is overview of cities, suburbs, and metro regions. So metro areas accounted for 92% of the nation's population increase. Sprawling metropolitan regions have converted farmland, forests, and natural areas to developed uses at a rate of more than 300 acres a day. This is a pretty huge number. And the picture shows Katy City in Harris County around Houston in 2012. You can see that almost this land are still agricultural users. But the second picture shows the same places, but you can see this the forest before they have converted to the building environment. So natural areas will have habitat, working landscapes of farms, forests, and built environments with green spaces are all necessary for human well-being. So the necessity of metropolitan planning. The revitalization of American cities and suburbs is necessary not just to accommodate the growing numbers of Americans, but also to provide sustainable alternative to environmentally damaging sprawl and to reduce greenhouse gas emission. Metro planning efforts are needed not only for transportation, a more compact settlement pattern, but also to protect water supplies, working landscapes, and environmental sensitive land, such as the wetlands. Then we move to 19.1, the challenges of building and managing green cities, suburbs, and metro regions. Goals and requirements. Primary planning goals is to building and redeveloping cities, suburbs, and metropolitan regions for sustainability. So the requirements include careful land use planning, like mixed-use planning and limit the sprawl of city, and a long-term commitment of public and private investment in energy conservation, stormwater management system, multimodal transportation such as bike, walk, and public transportation. And also the energy efficient building, such as building with green roof. Several green building codes include the LEED and ASHRAE. And also the green spaces. The political and social obstacles to achieving the sustainable green cities goals. The biggest challenges to create green settlements and metro regions involve American segmented local government structure. For example, Greater Philadelphia area has more than 400 units of local government. It's really hard to coordinate them together toward a same plan. And also the competition among local government for property tax and sales tax base. The local government heavily rely on local property taxes. Facial zoning utilizes to attract commercial and industrial development and high-end residences on large lots. These land uses usually generate more property tax revenue than they require in public service cost, producing a net facial gain for the community. And also the proliferation of school districts. Families tend to buy a home in a better school district so that their kids can get better education. Suburbs that attract the majority of jobs and tax bases. and also have highest property values, and the best public schools are called the favored quarter. From environmental justice perspective, it would suggest that the favored quarter suburbs should take their fair share of low and moderate income housing in order to deconcentrate poverty in the center city and other suburbs. And also there is an anti-urban bias. America has a long tradition of suspicious about cities. Even today, cities bear the stigma of congestion, crime, and green. Then we move on to redevelopment versus green cells development. A long-standing challenge that cities and older suburbs face is how to compete for new development with older suburban green cell development. As I mentioned before, it's like converting to the green spaces into the building is like the green cell development is usually happen in the suburb areas. And redevelopment is always means like revitalize the downtown areas in the center city. And infill development means to fill the gap between the two existing buildings. In this way, it can control the city sprawl. So what are some benefits of the green side development? So the developer prefer to develop on green sites? Everyone want to answer?
I think it's easier to clearly existing wildlife and green sites than it is to build in already populous areas and previous building sites.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Yeah, so land in the outer suburb is generally cheaper, and it is easier to assemble large tracts for residential subdivision and commercial projects. There are usually fewer land use restrictions in the outer suburbs, and the approval process is quicker and more predictable. Property taxes in the outer suburbs are often lower than in a city or older suburbs. Much of them are shovel-ready, which means they are ready to development right now without consider the hazard waste problems. To compete with new green side development, urban and suburban redevelopment and infill projects can incorporate green infrastructure, such as green roof and energy efficient building design. In addition, redevelopment and infill projects must have a mixed uses and connect to transit system to make this project as cost competitive and convenient to attract the developer. And also there should have some policy support to encourage the redevelopment and infill development in the urban center. Overcome the legacy of sprawl. Zoning was developed as a time when cities had large areas with heavy industries. Rigid zoning has separated the commercial and residential areas, so that a call has become a necessity to get to work, a store, or a park. Developers need a waiver or variance to develop mixed commercial and residential uses building. They separate people from each other through economic and physical segregation. Planner needed to reform and update the zoning and subdivision ordinance to allow and encourage compact mixed-use development with green infrastructure. This is the old rigid zoning map I found. You can see that the residential is in the suburb area, but the center is the commercial area. So you need a code from your residential to get to the commercial center. But now you should, the planner should adopt this new subdivision regulation, like the downside of the building can be work or commercial, and the upper side can be residential. So we move on to 19.2, making cities, suburbs, and metro regions into sustainable green communities. The first element is green spaces. Today, urban redevelopment can incorporate green spaces to achieve several purposes at once, including aesthetics, recreation opportunity, smart street shading, and stormwater control. Options include trails, community garden, pocket parks, tree planting, which taking small amount of land, even with environmental sensitive land, such as steep slope, floodplains, and even wetlands. Real estate close to parks and green spaces has a higher value. And green spaces correlated with lower crime rates and psychological benefits. The recent research suggests that for 1% increase in total green space, there is a 1.2% decrease in violent crime and 1.3% decrease in property crime. Second element, urban forestry. Trees absorb stormwater, filter air pollutants, recycle carbon dioxide into oxygen, and provide shade to reduce the urban heat island effect, lower air conditioning costs, and mitigate the climate change simultaneously. One of the important aspects of sustainability is greater self-efficiency. Urban agriculture can generate a significant proportion of a city's vegetables and provide green spaces, recreation, and opportunity for social interaction, and also saving the energy used in the United States. According to this chart, more than 14% of the energy used in the US food system was spent on transportation. But with local community gardens like vines, you can save that energy with local food supply. Stormwater management. A key indicator for stormwater management is the amount of impervious surfaces in form of roads, building, parking lots, and sidewalks. More pavement and building can increase stormwater runoff, flooding, and combine sewer overflows. The challenge is to capturing and infiltrating stormwater on site. Green spaces and green infrastructure are important for intercepting, infiltrating, and slowing the release of stormwater runoff. The challenge of this is the green infrastructure is not connected network in citywide, and it also needs financial funds, regulation, and maintenance. The most common type of green infrastructure is bioretention. Usually it's grass fields and green gardens, like this picture shows. It's always happening in less dense areas and is more financially feasible. Green roofs have layers of drainage, filtering, and growing media, climate appropriate vegetation to capture and absorb most rainfall, and save energy heating and cooling costs for building. This is a green roof in the governmental plaza at city of Binghamton. And the government also put a lot of efforts in managing the stormwater. A number of cities have created stormwater utilities to charge property owners a fee based on the amount of impervious surface on their property. Some city gives a height bonus to new buildings in which incorporating the green roofs. Other solution involves this period parking lots. It can intercept the stormwater and reduce the stormwater runoff. The other element is restoration. Many cities and suburbs will need to undertake restoration projects to bring back the environment, especially for the old industrial city of the Rust Belt. A goal of restoration should be a network of green infrastructure, restored buildings, and redevelopment sites. Example of this, the practice of this involves a brownfield redevelopment, as we already talked in chapter 8, and water quality improvement, reclaiming the floodplains and waterfronts for parkland, which can utilize for fall control. Water supplies. We already talked this a lot in chapter 5. Cities, suburbs, and regions cannot survive without adequate long-term water supplies. Securing long-term water supplies is not simply a matter of finding as much water as possible, but also includes managing the demand for water. There are also new technology involved in turning salt water into fresh water. It's already being used in Southern California, but it's much more expensive. Solid waste management and energy conservation. Solid waste management is always involved reduce, reuse, and recycle, as we already talked before. And energy conservation and renewable energy. Conservation means reducing the demand for energy, especially the fossil fuels. Renewable energy provides a supply of electricity and biofuel with little pollution. Green infrastructure is pretty good and save the energy usage for city. And also there are some green building codes because building is one of the biggest energy consumer in the city. So when utilize the green building codes like these, it can minimize heating and cooling needs, natural lighting, and reducing energy consumption and greenhouse gas emissions. Renewable electrical energy is that wind energy from wind or solar power. Transportation, like we just talked before, transportation patterns greatly affect energy consumption, air pollution, greenhouse gas emission, water quality, wildlife habitat, farmland, and forest land. Mass transit are more efficient and cost-effective, especially through corridors when moving big amount of people. It offers a variety of transit options like train, bus, subway, etc. The most famous corridor in United States is Northeast Corridor, which is from Boston through New York City, Philadelphia, and all the way to Washington, D.C. Transit-oriented development become more popular, which maximizes the amount of residential, business, and leisure space within walking distance of public transportation. Walking and bicycling are fundamental transportation options in a green city. Sidewalks, bikes, bike paths, trails are needed for healthy lifestyle. Like this is an example of complete street, which incorporate all these elements. Electrical color or wind color is much better than fossil fuel-based color. Regional city. Urban planners should not only plan for a city without considering what is happening in the surrounding suburbs and countryside. Regional city includes one or more central cities, suburbs, and countryside. There are several tools the planners always use to minimize the impacts to the suburb areas. The first one is urban growth boundary, which setting a limit for the extension of urban service, especially sewage lines and water lines. Inside the boundary, there should be sufficient land to accommodate population growth and development for next 20 years. It controls the urban sprawl and protects the land like farm, forest, wetland, etc. The other concept is the peak color, which means the limit of convenient commuting by car. I think it's thinking like a tipping point. When it exceeds the number of the car in a region, there will be a serious consequences for the environment, like traffic congestion, environmental pollution, things like that. Market region. Researchers have identified 10 market regions in the United States, like this map shows. The market regions concept has several implications for environmental planning. There is often competition for environmental resources within a market region. For example, in Southern California area, due to shortage of water, city always use their own resources compete for water between within the metropolitan area. There is a need for a market region to establish an authority to coordinate all the city's needs. A mega region is often defined by its interstate highway corridor, like I already mentioned the corridor before. And mega regions need to grow in compact settlements that can be easily connected with transit and minimize the conversion of open space. Then let's move back to our local, back to Binghamton. So this is a Brooke County land cover map I made before using the GIS software. And the data is acquired from USGS website. So we can clearly see that in the center city, there is developed in a high intensity. So there is still a lot of things we can do to protect our suburbs and make our cities greener. That's it.
Zhanchao, that was awesome. He really put you all to shame.